Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane.
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
So you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff. All right, welcome everybody back to another stimulating episode of Nostalgia Street, where we share the stories that shape us. The shuz always mess me up.
Hey, you did it. You did it great.
I got it. Our guest today is Brian. As usual, we'll leave his last name out until we get a little further into it. We are broadcasting, as always, from our studio here at 114 South Main in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. This is Forefront Studios. So with that little plug out of the way, Vince, what is our first question today for Brian?
All right, Brian. So looking through your questionnaire, you are an avid reader from a young age. So my question to you today is, if you could write a children's book, and it could be a pre-existing children's story, but you had to use members of a band as characters in that story, what story would that be? What band are you using, and what roles are they playing?
Oh my gosh.
Like, is it like Little Red Riding Hood with like Kiss?
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrifying.
Yeah, we'll do, Curious George with Guns N' Roses. Members from Guns N' Roses.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Who's George?
Oh, Axl.
Who's Axl? I don't think Axl knows who Axl is now. Have you seen him lately?
It's been a while, yeah.
There's different YouTube videos out or TikToks or whatever. His voice is just not where it used to be.
Sure.
Just like there is a really funny one of Vince Neil, Motley Crue, and somebody like it was the song, I think it's Jumpstart My Heart. And anyway, the words that he was throwing out there, somebody like made captioning. I mean, it made the whole thing up, but it sounded like what they wrote down is exactly what he's saying, and it made no sense at all. And you're like, wow, what did it? Are the crowds leaving when they hear these things?
Yeah, what's happening?
That look like?
That's awesome.
So our guest today is Brian Stroh. Brian is a Maxwell. What's the proper terminology?
I'm a speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now, and for people who may not know, who live under a rock, who is John Maxwell?
Yeah, he's a best-selling author, leadership guru, probably the best-selling leadership author of all time.
Yeah.
Doesn't he usually go by middle initial?
John C.
John C.
See, that's why it didn't sound familiar to me.
And the C stands for what?
That's
Champion.
Crazy good leader.
That's a great question. Yeah,
So viewers, if you know what the C John C. Maxwell stands for,
I'll send you a book. So.
I'll send you a book.
But no, he is very he's a great author and a good speaker. We saw I got to see him speak a couple of years ago. He's really good. So we'll get into that there at the end. So let's start peppering our guest with the questions that we love. Again, we always kind of push out this questionnaire to our guests to help them jump into their time machine and go back in time. So, Brian, we don't need to talk age unless you want to, but Brian feels like he's a child of the 80s, which is right up my alley. I'm definitely a child of the 80s. I love talking about the 80s. So we were talking on the air. Well, let's wait on that one. That one I want to wait till maybe a little bit older.
Where'd you grow up, Brian?
I grew up in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Okay, so the other Dakota.
The other Dakota.
Yeah. It's even colder and snowier up there than it is in here in the wintertime. Yeah.
Now, how far away is Grand Forks from Sioux Falls?
5 hours, 300 miles. Yeah.
All right. And is that in the middle of the state?
Grand Forks is north of Fargo.
Okay.
Probably an hour and a half south of Canada. So
yeah, I was gonna say, how far are you from Canada?
So what y'all do up there?
What y'all do up there?
We didn't say y'all, that's for sure. So the University of North Dakota is in Grand Forks, and hockey's big in Grand Forks. So I didn't play hockey, but we played a lot of street hockey with the guys in the neighborhood, and then went to UND hockey games Friday and Saturday nights.
Wayne's World Street Hockey, that kind?
A little bit, yeah.
All right. So how big of a year or season was winter in Grand Forks?
Oh, goodness. Winter could start in October and go to April, May.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like here.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
So you would have big mounds of snow at the mall
Oh,
that
absolutely.
would take years to melt.
Yeah, we'd play King of the Hill at recess. Throw kids off the.
Would they let you go up on the hill?
Oh yeah, it was the '80s, man. Yeah,
Oh,
you
man.
could do all kinds of things back then.
That's the world back then.
Miss Mary, our playground teacher, was she was a large lady that waddled, and she had a whistle and a mole with a lot of hair on, just like the lunch lady.
Of course, right? Yeah.
And I guess our hill got too tall. Around the 5th or 6th grade, they wouldn't let us go up on the hill for fear we'd hurt ourselves. So you guys were lucky. Very lucky.
We've all seen that movie, A Christmas Story, right? That's with Ralphie and the tongue and the pole. Yeah, I mean, we had kids that would do that on the crossbar of the hockey net. They would stick their tongue out and
And get stuck?
Oh yeah, for sure. Rip it off and
okay. We got to change the topic.
Not just a movie scene. That happens. So
what kind of trouble did you get into?
Kind of trouble did I get into? So it is the 80s. It's a little bit of a different time. There's not social media. There's not cameras and phones everywhere. We would do the ding dong ditch stuff. We would chuck crab apples at cars and snowballs outside of cars and just dumb kids.
Did you have like an old man Foster in your neighborhood that was just like that strange neighbor that you guys always picked on?
Old man Foster.
Not that I can recall, but there was a couple of families or dudes in the neighborhood that always seemed to be tipping mom and dad off that we were up to stuff we shouldn't be up to. So
they're the ones who got the crab apples.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what was your family unit like?
So I'm the oldest of 4.
Wow.
I've got a brother a year younger than I am, and then two sisters, one 7, one 9 years younger than I am. My mom taught school for 41 years as a first grade teacher.
Wow.
And then my dad worked in an electric company called Border States. Headquarters was in Fargo. They've got a branch here in Sioux Falls and throughout the area too. So he worked there 42 years.
Okay.
Same company.
So with mom being a teacher, did she kind of know what you were up to, or?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. Just a couple of weeks ago over the holidays, we were reminiscing. I was in a 3rd grade class one year and she didn't like the teacher that I had gotten. And 2 days later, I was in a completely different class and getting the backstory on the tension and the conflict between her and the principal and back and forth on, you're not putting my kid in this class. So yeah, fascinating.
Wow.
So Mrs. Stroh ran the school.
She ran
You didn't cross Mrs. Stroh, yeah.
Mrs. Stroh ran the show.
Oh, that's a good one.
So what was, when you think back, what was a typical Saturday morning? What did that look like for you?
Saturday morning would have been waking up early, getting a bowl of Lucky Charms or Frosted Flakes or something like that, and then watching the Smurfs and Saturday morning cartoons. Come on, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we're right there. Did you experience any of that?
I mean, we didn't have cereal, but Saturday morning cartoons were a thing.
Okay. What do you mean you didn't have cereal?
Just breakfast in my household was not cereal. It was nuts.
I think the one way he put this, my mom didn't believe in cereal
or
like it's a religion.
Syrup.
Yeah, she didn't believe in syrup.
I'm 46 and I still have a bowl of cereal at night most nights. It's just
really?
It's a bad habit.
Oh,
my
wow.
wife gives me a hard time
Cereal
for it.
is weird to me.
Oh, I could have cereal. I'd have cereal for lunch if I could.
I need to stick that into my nighttime repertoire. Maybe that would solve my late night cravings. I'm really bad about that. So yeah, a bowl of cereal.
Yeah, bowl of life. Or
I mean, it'd be a big bowl. Trust me,
Yeah.
it'd be a big one.
Which side do you guys fall on? Milk first cereal or cereal then milk?
Cereal than milk.
Yeah, it's got to be cereal first.
Okay.
Because if you don't, you put the milk in the cereal, you can't get as much cereal in because it just floats in the surface.
Just overflows the bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, come on, Vince.
I can tell you didn't grow up with cereal.
Professionals here.
If we get soggy cereal if you let it sit too long.
Well, you eat it fast so it doesn't get soggy.
Yeah, there's a milk to cereal ratio that's pretty important. So
We better ask our viewership, what is the ideal milk to cereal ratio here?
Make comments below.
Science.
I like that milk to
Exactly.
cereal ratio. That's true. Yeah, you don't got to go too high there. And then you know the most important part of the very end. You got to drink the milk. You can't waste that.
Yeah. I'll drink the milk, and then my dog gets a little bit, just a tiny bit, because he begs. So gotta help him out.
there.
Yeah, help him out.
Well, so what were some other rituals growing up that you recall that were?
Yeah. So UND hockey. My mom and dad always went Saturday nights. So it's a Friday, Saturday night games.
Okay.
And my dad would always take us on Friday nights, me and my brother. And just 2 tickets. So my brother and I shared a seat. We could do that. We'd always stop at the Valley Dairy in Grand Forks. My dad would load us up with sugar and stuff it in the coat and come into the arena. And then every Saturday night, my mom and dad would go to the games, and we had a sitter and just hung out and did stuff like that. And then got older, we didn't play hockey. I played basketball, and so my dad swapped his tickets to basketball games for University of North Dakota. And
all right.
Yeah, had a great time going to those.
So do you remember John Sunvold?
His name sounds really familiar, yeah.
So he was a point guard at the University of Missouri, and I don't recall. I want to say he was from North Dakota or South Dakota.
Okay, yeah.
I want to say North Dakota though, but he was not too tall. But man, his I mean, that was before they had the 3-point line in college.
Sure. Yep.
But they said that when he grew up, again, I think in North Dakota, his dad modified the basketball rim so that it was smaller than usual. And I mean, this guy was our Steph Curry.
Okay.
The guy would put up anything and it would just go down. It was just flawless.
And that smaller rim helped his shooting. Yeah, for sure.
Totally, almost like a carnival rim.
So do you still make your way back up there to watch games with your family, or?
Interesting enough, we were just up there 2 weeks ago, January 4th, watching UND hockey. Yeah, my oldest son was home from college. He's like, "Dad, I want to go to a game." I'm like, "That's really random," but yeah.
Did you point out like that's where we used to sit?
Well, it's a new arena since we've been there, but
Okay.
yeah. My sister lives there, so we stayed with her, and
Had
a good time.
What was the most horrific injury that you ever saw? Because hockey's pretty violent, right?
I can't remember an injury, but so UND's big hockey rival is the University of Minnesota, the Gophers.
Yeah.
And during the games in Grand Forks, kids and adults would sneak Gophers in, huck them on the ice after
like
goals.
Dead or alive?
Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they were alive when they threw them, and dead when they hit the ice.
Just throw golfers on the ice.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Just animals. Yeah, just throwing animals on the ice.
Wow. Because you can't throw a bison.
80s were a different time.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's some old YouTube footage of epic fights between those two teams and going in the penalty box and hitting guys and stuff like that.
So were the basketball games like that as well?
Against the Bison and the NDSU, that's their big rival. Those were really fun, really competitive. Yeah, but nothing quite like hockey in terms of the rivalries and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have a rivalry game in your college or high school career, sir?
I mean, I went to Catholic school, so everybody hated us. Literally, all the kids just chanted, "We don't have to pay for God to love us," and all those other things. It was like state football, state basketball, same thing.
Really hated it.
Man.
So I mean, it was a fight every day.
Wow. You against the world, huh?
Well, I went to school at the University of Missouri, and so we were always big rivals with Kansas.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And I-70 is what kind of linked our college or the Missouri with Kansas, and so always all sorts of jokes about what's the best thing to come out of Kansas, and it was I-70.
I-70, yeah.
What do you call a good-looking cheerleader from Kansas? Transfer. I mean, all sorts of stuff like that. We don't play them anymore, but those were good days. So we have Brian has provided us a list here of his favorite musical groups. So we've got one of my favorites, U2, and Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, REM, and then DC Talk and Jars of Clay.
Yeah.
So how old were you, would you say, when you began to discover music?
Probably it was junior high back when I was going to school, not middle school. It's like that 6th, 7th, 8th grade year. I don't remember a lot of music in elementary
isn't that
school,
weird?
but
I don't
it's
either.
like junior high, probably getting into some of those groups, some of those bands, yeah.
So what influenced you to take a liking to some of these groups that you listen to?
It's just, what my buddies were into, what our friends were into, that's what they were listening to. My dad loved like the oldies, like 50s and 40s and 60s, like that type of stuff. I mean, he had a wide genre. Mom would listen to Christian radio in Grand Forks, and we're driving to school and stuff. And so, but my friends were into Guns N' Roses, REM, those types of groups. And so we'd buy the cassettes, buy the tapes, and play the tapes. And
What was the first piece you owned?
First what?
Piece of music you owned.
First piece of music I owned, probably Joshua Tree by U2. Yeah.
That's a classic.
Yeah. Probably.
Did you ever get to see them in concert?
I have not seen them in concert, no.
Have you seen a concert like a video or anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen a video of that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. They put on an amazing show.
That's what I hear.
And now they're in the, well, I don't know if they're still going to be doing that, but they opened up as the artist in residency at the Sphere in Vegas.
Yeah.
So the videos I saw that were like just next level.
Yeah.
Just so cool. They're a very cool group. What was your first concert that you saw?
First concert would have been Garth Brooks.
Okay.
In the Fargo Dome in Fargo as a freshman in high school.
Freshman in high school. And you chuckled then, so there's got to be a nefarious
Well, because I mean,
story.
not necessarily a country music guy. I certainly back then was not a country music guy, but was into his stuff, and he was the biggest thing to come to Fargo in a long time. And we had moved to Fargo from Grand Forks, and so got a ticket to the show.
So there was not a girl involved where you had to
actually, I think my girlfriend at the time bought me that ticket for my birthday or something like that. Yeah.
I feel like everybody in the Dakota Territories is a little bit country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even
if you're not like, I don't like country, you're big country.
Yeah.
big country.
In the territories.
But yeah, he put on a great show, like 19,000 people in the Fargo Dome, biggest indoor crowd in North Dakota at that time.
Sure.
You know, that has since been broken, obviously. But yeah, he was in the center of the stage and would rotate around, and just a phenomenal performer.
Yeah.
He's still playing, right?
I think so.
Didn't we have to add like 3 or 4 dates when he came here, like a couple of years ago?
He had a ton
Probably.
of shows a couple years ago, yeah.
Probably. There's a few of them that just know how to do the entertainment.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you think about TV shows or movies that you still, if it's on TV or if it's streaming, you're like, yeah, I've only seen this 100 times, but I think I'll go for 101. Do you have any of those shows?
Oh, Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner.
Yep.
I'll get sucked into that. Hoosiers, Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Rudy's a little bit more of the early 90s, I think, but some of those sports type films I love. And then, the original Star Wars, I'm not into that a lot, but one of my kids is, and he was watching the trilogy over the Christmas break. And he's like, Dad, which one's your favorite? I'm like, well, I love Return of the Jedi. He's like, Dad, that's like the worst of the 3. I'm like, well, that's the first movie I went to see in a theater was Return of the Jedi. And so it's got that, nostalgic connection with me. Like, this is the best one. Got the Ewoks. And he's like, Dad, it sucks.
I feel like we got to call your kid out there. It's the worst one?
The worst of the original 3 is.
I think people usually say the second one is.
Yeah.
Right?
That's his favorite. He loves Empire Strikes Back. Yeah.
So it's really not your opinion that's.
I don't know. He's
smeared here. It says
he's very passionate. So
I'm like, put the Ewoks aside, but you got Luke just being a total baddie.
Yeah.
And then the metal bikini, and then.
Well, that's when we found out that Darth Vader's Luke's father.
And that Emperor, he's like got that weird face. And,
I thought that was super cool. I was like,
I love that one. So.
I liked them all, even though the most recent 3 people are kind of beaten up because it's not, it's not. George wasn't part of those, and that's too bad. But
Right.
We beat up the prequels when they came out. So in 10 years, 20 years, we'll be like, oh, remember the sequels? Those were great.
Yeah, those are amazing. Yeah.
Someday.
Nostalgia helps with everything, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Exactly.
Because some of those things that probably happened when you were younger, like, oh man, that was bad, terrible. Now you're thinking like, oh yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you hit into the high school and the college years, what did young Brian think that old Brian was going to be?
In junior high, Brian didn't know what he was doing.
Does Brian know what he's doing now?
That's a fair question.
I just like when Brian talks about Brian. He's always not Brian. It's kind of cool, Brian.
Brian doesn't often talk of himself in the third person.
Counter.
That's great. I'll put that in the comments. So I work as a pastor at a church and grew up in a home that went to church Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights. My dad wasn't a pastor, but very involved in that. And I can remember going to church camp as a junior high student, high school student, becoming more involved with youth ministry. That's where the Christian rock music kind of came into.
Sure.
And the summer between sophomore year and junior year in high school, I was at camp and just feeling this sense like I'm going to I want to work as a pastor. I want to work as a youth pastor. That's kind of what I was sensing and feeling. And then I can remember my junior year being in trigonometry class and our teacher doing basically that. Like, what do you guys want to do? Where are you headed? Where do you want to be when you grow up type thing? And I said, I want to be a pastor. And I kid you not, my math teacher drops her pen. Hallelujah. I mean, she just screams it out. I'm like, come on, lady. Like, I mean, we don't need that. We don't need that.
Yeah. Right.
But, and that's where, so I went to school at the University of Sioux Falls here in Sioux Falls. And my dad said, Brian, whatever you do, major in something else. Because at that time, to be a pastor, you also had to go to divinity school and get that degree. He's like, you're going to get all that there, do something practical undergrad. So I got a degree in business administration at USF. And then at the time, it was called North American Baptist Seminary here in Sioux Falls. Now it's Sioux Falls Seminary. Now it's actually Kairos or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of the journey there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
I think every Catholic parent wants their child to become a priest or a nun, right?
That's very interesting because Catholics, they just kidnap you.
Kidnap.
You get sent to a nunnery or a whatever they call it.
Put a bag over your head. And
Jeez.
So you said you had this revelation at camp,
Correct.
like a discipleship camp type thing, youth camp.
Youth camp. Yep.
So you guys must have some camp stories to share.
Well, I was just going to get into that. What were those little stories there?
Camp is like, even now I say camp is like Christian Vegas. Like what happens at camp stays at
That's
camp.
a quote that's getting cut out later.
That is so
for
good. Well,
Christian Vegas.
I'll tell my story. It's not too salacious, but my buddy Derek. Now I grew up in Missouri, so he'll never hear this, so I can say whatever I want to say. But my buddy Derek, there was a girl from another church that was at this camp also, and I could tell that they kind of liked each other. So I thought I would encourage the relationship.
There you go. Yeah.
So I wrote a message to him, telling him he read. Yeah, I wrote the message to him as though I were her.
So and he was like, her handwriting so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I told him to be at at the cafeteria or something like that at 9 p.m. And then to be a little devil, because that's the way I was growing up. The message that I sent to her from him said, meet me at the cafeteria at 9 a.m. I'm coming prepared, if you know what I mean. I don't know what that meant when I was a kid, but I thought, all right.
We get age ranges here.
So all I know is we got engaged in something else. And then the next thing I knew, my sleeping bag was atop the flagpole.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he had found out what I did. He took my sleeping bag. I'm pretty sure he peed on it, is what somebody told me. And then he threw it in the shower, got it good and wet, and then he put it on top of the flagpole. And then we pretty much didn't talk for about 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, I had to apologize and say, hey, guys, I was just having some fun. But it brought them together.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
I don't think they got married, but... that's
good
one
result.
of my brand.
Good result. Yeah.
Derek, you can send a thank you letter to Jeff over at Forefront Studios.
Yeah.
I would say that's my Bandcamp story. That wasn't Bandcamp. But so did you have any fun stories to share that your kids would be okay with?
Yeah, I mean, so growing up at camp and then on the flip side, doing the youth pastor thing and being a leader at the camp, had some fun as well.
Sure.
So, at camp, the tradition is to sneak out. We had a bell, and that was this, they wanted to steal the bell. And I remember one time I was the director for senior high camp, and we had caught wind that was going down. And so we got the band that we had brought up for the week and a bunch of the other counselors, and we positioned ourselves on top of the dining hall and on top of the chapel on the roof. And we had bottle rockets.
Military operations here.
We just shot. Can you imagine? We just shot them at the kids.
As a counselor, you shot bottle rockets
Yeah,
at
as a
kids.
full-grown adult, Vince.
Wow.
No
And
insurance.
so, yeah, really sorry if you're watching that happened to be your kid. But,
Christian Vegas. You get lucky, you get hit.
and so that 10 years later, we could tell that story and have
Statute
some
of
fun.
limitations.
Yeah.
See, when I was at D camp, we were at Lake Poncet, and there's there's like a dip and there's like a one little mess hall, and me and Peter Dang, we stole the one and only cam microphone.
Oh, wow.
We stacked a bunch of milk crates, climbed up top of the roof, put the megaphone up there, and then as we're climbing down, they see all these milk crates. They're like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're just getting up there to look at the stars or whatever." And then someone's like, "Where's the megaphone?" And then Peter starts taking off, jumps in the lake, starts swimming. I'm like, "Where are you swimming, Peter?" And then he gets a cramp. So they had to go out there and grab him.
You almost drowned or something?
Oh, jeez.
And what do we have to do? We had to do cleanup the next morning because we stole the megaphone, and that's as bad as it got.
Oh my, that's awesome.
I didn't set up any romances like Jeff did.
But you saved a life. So
Yeah.
Well, Peter put himself in his.
wow.
Peter put himself in a pickle.
Yes.
So what did going through the Masters of Divinity, was that a pretty tough tour duty to go through that? Were there any specific challenges that made it tough?
So it's 3 full years. It's 90 credits. We get we're not lawyers, but we get as much schooling. We're in schooling for as long as a lawyer was at that time.
Wow.
And yeah, it's hard but it's hard because I went K through 12 and then went undergrad 4 years. And it's 3 more years of school, and you're 23, 24, 25, wanting to work, wanting to make an income, support a family, start a family, and kind of just delaying that just a tad, just a bit to be able to do that. And some of the coursework is doable, but there is some, you're got to take 2 classes in Greek because the New Testament's written in Greek.
Yeah.
You have the choice to do Hebrew, which the Old Testament's written in. That can be challenging. That can be difficult. Some of the church history stuff, some even the theology stuff is challenging because you're trying to sort out your beliefs on that, and your professors are trying to do a good job of not letting you know what they believe or trying to give you that open mind to figure some of that stuff out on your own. So nowadays a lot of it's online, a lot of it's virtual, a lot of it is, okay, you're working in this spot, and so we'll take that as credit, which is super. It's a great revision or whatever for students today. But there was something really cool about being in a community of 20, 30, 40 people doing the same thing, having those same conversations. Yeah.
When I was in college, there was a mentor of mine, and he was the one that kind of taught me, like, if you're reading through the Bible, know the language that it came from, but then go into that language, because oftentimes the meaning of the context might be a little bit different.
Right.
We'd usually look at the New International Version or something like that, and then you would look at the Aramaic or the Greek text and go, this is actually what it would say. And it was interesting to see.
Yeah.
And it would influence the way that you would look at things. And I remember this, hopefully this to get us off track too much, but I think it's interesting that sometimes we think we know what we know, but we really don't know as much as we think we do. So there was a kid in my grade, freshman, and anyway, we had a female Sunday school teacher, and he actually got up. He's from a smaller town outside of the area. He actually got up and said, "You should sit down. You should no longer talk, because the Bible says that women should be silent in church." And it actually does.
Yes.
But the context of it, which you know better than me, but it was, I think the context that we were talking about, or at least that my mentor said, is that back in the times of Sodom and Gomorrah, and actually it was Corinth. Corinth was like Las Vegas, and there's a lot of different feminist groups and other groups, and so the early day Christians didn't want to be perceived as a feminist group, and so they needed to make sure that women were not, even though they could lead the church, they didn't want the perception to be that group was that Christianity was a feminist movement. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then they went on to say that, but the Bible specifically calls out in the New Testament with Priscilla and Aquila, but Priscilla, the female, the wife, was always touted first.
Correct.
Which is kind of cool.
Yes.
That the church supported women even in the New Testament.
Well, yeah, even some of his closest followers are women.
Right.
When he's hanging on the cross, it's John and a bunch of women that are there to his last, breast before that. So yeah. We could probably do another talk, another talk on that. It's interesting though how sometimes we can pick and choose which pieces of a book like that or a scripture like that I really like that, so I'm going to make that my platform, but I'm going to completely ignore anything that would counter that part. So
I want to go back to the Greek bit. Did you have a Greek key phrase, like a key phrase that helped you remember, or like that still sticks in your mind, or like, I don't know much Greek anymore, but I know this phrase?
Well, there's some cheat ones. Ecclesia is Greek for church.
Yeah.
Koinonia is Greek for community or fellowship.
Okay, so things you use kind of semi-regularly.
Somewhat, I don't know about somewhat regularly, but
yeah, you don't say koinonia too much.
How about Euro?
Euro, yeah. Hey, I need some koinonia to put into my parking meter.
Oh, that's awesome.
So now let's as Brian gets older, let's go back to talking like Brian, like he's not really here. So as older Brian gets older, and now you're in this field of leadership training. Is that the fair way to call it?
Yeah.
So how did you make that transition or crossover?
That's a great question. So I've been at Hillcrest Church here in Sioux Falls for 21 years.
Wow.
I was a youth pastor there for 4 or 5, and then have been like the executive, the associate for the last 15 to 16, and love it. Great people. I think we've done some great things in the community and throughout the world. And yet I've always had this sense of doing some of those things that I do day to day, but also offering that into the marketplace or for businesses or for leaders that maybe aren't in the religious or church type setting.
Sure.
And so I was coming out of COVID. My wife and I were talking, and she could sense that I needed something a little bit extra or more in terms of work and in terms of stuff like that. And so found, like, I know John Maxwell. I've read his books. I've seen him speak. I didn't know he had a program where you could get certified or that you could do his stuff. And so found that on Google, talked to a program advisor, had a good heart-to-heart with my wife and paid some money, and then started that part of the journey. So
what does this look like then when you engage with clients? What's this look like?
It's been a lot of learning, because in business, like I don't, nonprofit or church or religious work, there's a fair amount of sales. You have to recruit volunteers, you're recruiting donations, but it's different. It's not like you don't pay to go to church.
Yeah.
You don't pay to hear the gospel. You don't pay for your kids to go to Sunday school. But in order for me to do what I'm doing now, like there's got to be an exchange of value there, right? I've got to provide something. There's got to be something that someone wants to compensate me for. That's been a whole new area of learning, new area of growth when it comes to this thing. And so I've had to read a lot, learn a lot, make a lot of mistakes, make a lot of trial and error, figure that out. And then just trying to figure out who I like to work with and what type of people I like to work with, where I feel I've got some gifts or some talents that I can do it. But it's really like, what are you struggling with? What's maybe not working in terms of communication? Or do you have folks on your team who you want to promote or you want to grow, but they are missing some of those leadership skills, leadership development, and let's have some conversations. There's some programs that we can do, but it starts with a conversation, starts with me listening and understanding what you want.
So who's your ideal client then? Is it an individual or is it an organization usually?
It's a team within an organization or a leader, like a leadership team, C-suite team, or you have an owner and they've got their VPs of this and that, and it's stuff they're probably too busy to do themselves, or they bring an outside person to give some fresh eyes, fresh perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
I don't want you to feel like you got to give away any major secrets or like that. But whether it's through your experience or maybe through the John C. Maxwell group, from a national or international perspective, what are some of those challenges that leadership teams are challenged with today that you're seeing or that the organization is seeing?
Yeah, I think there's two that jump to mind right away. The first one is communication. And that's a really broad way to say it.
Yep.
But communication can be looked at from a corporate perspective as a soft skill, and we're like, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. But there are some things we need to do to help people communicate better, handle conflict better, receive feedback better. That's all communication. There's some hard skills with communication too. We have people or teams that too many meetings, not enough meetings. My schedule's not matching up your schedule. Someone's time blocking here, but the person that's waiting for that work doesn't know their time blocking there, and so wires are getting crossed. So there's been some good growth there, but there's still a lot of, and I'm naive, right? I'm ignorant. I come from the outside. I go, why are you doing it like that?
Exactly.
The other thing too, I think you're seeing a lot of is folks who are great at what they do being promoted now to a manager or being promoted to a leader, and they don't have some of those skills. They haven't had to, and it's not rocket science stuff, but they haven't set an agenda for a meeting. They don't know how to help someone plan their goals. They don't know how to keep someone accountable to those goals, have those conversations, lead a meeting, stuff like that.
Yeah. I've heard that is very, very common, where you've got let's say a manufacturer somebody who's working an hourly position, and they're very good. They're always on time. People see them as a leader kind of a situation, but then you put them into the management role and they have no skill set to know what they're supposed to do. But there's just this assumption by leadership, well, you're really good at what you do, so by default you must be a great manager. And then they really stumble and fall.
It's like in I'm a sports guy. It's like in sports, you got your offensive coordinator for football, and some folks are really great at that, and then they become the head coach, and it's like, whoa, what happened to that guy? And they go back to being an offensive coordinator or whatever, and they do amazing. So
then you got the Bears, which we don't talk about.
Which is good, because I'm a Packer fan, Vince. So
good thing there's no Cowboy fans here.
All right, Brian.
God bless those Cowboy fans. Yeah.
So as you are right now, what advice would you give 8-year-old Brian? And what could you learn from 8-year-old Brian?
Yeah, that's a great question. The advice I'd give to 8-year-old Brian would be to not let failure failure, I guess, really stop you or prevent you from trying some new things. I'm the oldest of 4. I did great in school. I can remember getting cut from my basketball team in high school sophomore year. And that was devastating. I hadn't been told that I wasn't good enough ever, really. And that was the first time someone said, you're not making this team. And so that took me a long time. And then starting a business, it's all failure, right? In the first few months, first couple of years, it's just a ton of failure. Yeah. And if you can't get past that, you're going to really limit what you could do. 8-year-old Brian, he loved to have fun. He loved to play. He loved to be with his friends. And I would tell him, hey, keep seeking out friends, keep seeking out relationships. Don't get so guarded or closed off to people.
And hide that cereal.
Yeah. Don't take my Lucky Charms either.
Is there anything that you wish you could take from 8-year-old Brian for today? Like, what'd you learn?
Yeah, it kind of that playful spirit. I like to have fun still, and yet I'm 46. My kids call me a bot, and they're like, "Dad, or Grandpa, like you're so old." And you go to bed at 10 o'clock. I'm like, this is when people go to bed. People go to bed at 10 o'clock. Like this is a normal time. No, that's what you. So just to have a little bit more of that relaxed, easygoing, be up for whatever type thing.
All right, 10:15.
Yeah,
10:15. Yeah.
After the weather, Vince. That's right. Yeah,
that's true. After the weather. So from a leadership perspective, I remember back in the 80s, 90s when personal computers were becoming more popular.
Yeah.
And one of the sales techniques is this is going to save you so much time. You're going to be able to get your job done faster.
Sure.
But of course, that really means we're just going to give you more work.
More work to do. Yeah.
And so now what I equate as the new personal computer is really AI.
Yeah.
And, of course, the internet, between the two of them, there's so much information that has to challenge future leaders around how much information is too much information, and what are those expectations that are realistic to put on people to be productive or to continue doing a good job.
Yeah. AI is, I don't understand all of it or really a lot of it. I think the future is going that way for a lot of things. And yet humanity is still going to be a part of this world. It's still going to be a part of schools and businesses and companies and nonprofits. And the people that figure out how to connect other people are going to have a future no matter what AI does to work. AI can save us time. It can save us money. It can make processes quicker. It can write copy. It can edit videos. It can do a lot of tremendous things. And yet, and some people are worried about that, and that might be okay. But those of us that figure out how to do stuff like this and connect, there'll always be a future for that.
So would you consider ever giving an AI generated sermon?
Great question. I wouldn't.
I want to see what one would look like though. Like, how terrible would it be?
Well, back to John Maxwell. Like, it's interesting in some groups that we're part of, they've done that. They've said, hey, AI, give me a book summary on this, or give me write me some copy on this, and it's good.
It's pretty good stuff.
It's good. Yeah.
The one area that we've seen when we've tried to task AI with creating anything of humor,
yes,
it feels like it really struggles.
Sure.
I mean, you can tell it. For example, we were at a workshop a couple of months back, and this speaker asked somebody, name me a comedian. They said Jim Gaffigan.
Sure.
And then they said, give me a food item, apple. So they typed in real time, give me a comedy sketch about apples that's delivered by Jim Gaffigan. And it did amazing. And it was hilarious. Just like you could, if you're a fan of Jim Gaffigan, which I am, you're like, that's really good. But if you ask it with no, real context other than to use its own imagination or whatever you call it, machine learning, it just cannot really deliver the belly punch or the belly laugh. And it's you could say it's the prompts that you feed it, but also there's a little bit of that human creativity piece, that nuance that it feels like it still struggles with. And in a way, I think that's probably good, because if it were too human-like, then we're in real trouble, even more so than the robots killing us one day.
Roomba Doomba.
Yeah, Roomba Doomba.
That's interesting, though, right? That there are still some things that are unique to humanity, unique to humans, that the robots haven't quite replicated.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, someday there's going to be a summer camp run by robots to study humans.
Yeah. Right.
Are they going to shoot fireworks at them too?
Yeah. Well, we predicted, I don't know if you saw this episode a few episodes back, but Vince and I found a time machine. We went into the future, came back, and later this year, all of the Roomba robots will eventually take over.
There you go.
And cause havoc in houses.
Just going to suck everything.
It's the Roomba Doomba day. Well, we are just about wrapped up here, but we do have, I usually turn this back over to Vince. He has usually one last little.
So the theme of our show is always about tying that thread from the past to the present.
Sure.
Is there any particular moment or story that you can take us into, whether it's a quote, a sermon, a moment with a coach, or a story that you have that still resonates with you that you want to pass on to the folks right now?
Yeah. I had a track coach in high school named Gary Mayu, who was probably in his 50s when we were running track, and he would run with us. He would dust us. I ran the mile and the 2 mile. He just an incredible guy. And North Dakota, like South Dakota, weather can be a challenge in the spring. Track is a spring sport. And we'd be taking a bus somewhere, it'd be snowing, or it'd be windy, or it'd be rainy. And he would tell us, guys, remember, everyone deals with the elements. And I love that saying, because everyone deals with whatever. Today it's freezing cold out. We all have to deal with that. It's your attitude, it's your response, it's your mindset when it comes to that. Don't let that be an excuse. Take ownership for your results, no matter what the elements or the weather is doing. And I think that's just that's something I've carried into my own personal life, my own leadership, even to my own kids, and just saying, everyone's dealing with this. So, suck it up and take responsibility for what you can do.
Yeah, that's good.
I didn't know we had a season that wasn't winter or construction. You gave me a new season right there.
Oh, yeah.
Spring. What is spring?
It's May 2nd, right? Yeah.
What is this thing? Well, thanks for being on our
Awesome.
show.
You bet. Thank you
It's
so
fun
much,
to learn
guys.
some more about
Appreciate
you
that.
and reminisce.
Yeah, you guys are great. So.
And our viewers will pass all of Brian's contact info and stuff on our show notes below. So check that out. And don't forget that this show is not only just on your Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but also on YouTube where you can see all the visuals. Until then, we'll see you guys next time on Nostalgia Street. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged,
And never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.